I cut my workflow time from 30 minutes down to just 3 using this 5-part prompting framework. I didn't switch models and I didn't pay extra. I simply changed the structure of how I used to prompt. The framework I use to achieve this is called Scope, and it works on every AI tool like ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. But before we get into the framework, you need to understand why this matters. Every hour you spend fixing bad AI output is an hour wasted. When I started, I would lose 20 minutes crafting a prompt, get a mediocre result, and then burn another 15 minutes fixing it. That is 35 minutes for a single task. However, now I spend 2 minutes on the prompt and get usable output immediately. That is a 17 times efficiency gain. And the secret wasn't upgrading the model, it was a mindset shift. I stopped treating AI like a search engine and started treating it like an employee. Think about it. You wouldn't walk up to your team and just say, do marketing. You would give them context, goals, and constraints. Your AI requires the exact same thing, and that direction is built on Scope. This stands for specificity, context, objective, persona, and examples. These 5 elements turn vague requests into precise instructions. You don't need all 5 every time, but the more you use, the better your output gets. Let's break them down. First is S, specificity. This means defining the exact deliverable, not just the general category. For example, a bad prompt is write a proposal, but a specific prompt sounds like this: write a 2-page partnership proposal for a new distribution deal targeting executive buyers. The difference here is precision. The first prompt forces the AI to guess the format, the length, and the audience, and when the AI guesses, it defaults to generic assumptions. With the second prompt, you are essentially setting clear boundaries. You've locked the AI into a strict 2-page limit, focused it on a distribution deal, and tuned the tone specifically for an executive. Most people fail here because they forget that the AI starts with a blank slate. It relies on patterns, and if your input is vague, it picks the most average, common pattern it can find, which is usually generic and unhelpful. So always be specific about the length, format, audience, and purpose. Next is C, context. Context is the background information that shapes the output. Think of it this way: if I asked you to write an email, your immediate reaction would be, to whom, about what, and what is our relationship with them? The AI needs those exact same answers. A bad prompt is simply, write an email about the project delay, but a good prompt fills in the critical details. Write an email to our client explaining a 2-week delay caused by vendor issues. Note that this is the second delay, so the tone needs to be apologetic but confident in the new timeline. Now the AI understands the stakes, the relationship, and the necessary tone. So now the output will actually reflect the reality of the situation. Context covers who you are talking to, what happened previously, and what constraints exist. The rule is simple: the more context you provide, the less the AI has to invent. Next is O, objective. Objective is the goal of the output. What should it accomplish? This sounds similar to specificity, but it's fundamentally different. Specificity tells the AI what format you want. Objective tells it what the output needs to achieve. For example, a bad prompt is, write a social media post about our new feature, but a good prompt defines the outcome. Write a LinkedIn post announcing our new analytics dashboard. The objective is to drive demo requests from marketing directors who are frustrated with scattered data across multiple tools. The second prompt tells the AI what success looks like. It's not just announcing a feature, it's driving a specific action from a specific audience with a specific pain point. When the AI understands the objective, it tailors the language, the tone, and the structure to achieve that goal. Without it, you get bland announcements that fail to drive results. So always define what you want the output to accomplish. Are you persuading, informing, converting, or educating? Make it explicit. Next is P, persona. This is the role you assign to the AI, but don't think of this as a gimmick. Think of it as filtering data. You are forcing the model to access a specific set of vocabulary and expertise. For instance, if you simply ask the AI to critique a pitch deck, you will get generic advice on slide layout and typos. But look what happens when you command it to act as a venture capital partner with 15 years of experience. Review this deck and identify specific gaps in market validation and financial projections. You have just shifted the mental model. A VC analyzes a business very differently than a marketing consultant does. By defining the persona, you ensure the feedback matches your actual goal. This works for tone too, as a supportive mentor will give you encouragement, while a skeptical investor will give you the hard truth. So use persona whenever you need to extract specialized knowledge or a specific critical perspective. Finally, we have E, examples. This is the strongest lever you have because it shows the AI exactly what success looks like. Sometimes it is hard to explain the specific style or vibe you want in words. Examples solve that instantly. If you just say write product copy, the AI has to guess the style. But if you command it, Write copy for our new launch. Here are 3 examples of our best performing ads from last year. Match this exact tone and structure. Now the AI isn't guessing. It analyzes the patterns in your data, the vocabulary, the rhythm, the sentence length, and replicates them. This is the only way to make the output sound like your actual brand. You can even use this in reverse to show the model what not to do. Examples turn abstract requests into concrete targets. Now let's see what happens when you combine all 5 elements. Imagine you need to recover a lost lead. The lazy approach is to just type, "Write an email to a potential client," and it gives you a response like this, which just looks really generic. But here is how you execute that same task using Scope. Write a 150-word email to a SaaS client who visited our pricing page but didn't sign up. The objective is to address cost concerns and pitch a 15-minute demo covering ROI. Act as a sales consultant who is empathetic but direct. And finally, use this attached example of our highest converting email as a style guide, and you can already see the difference. The first prompt gives you a generic response, but this second one delivers a usable draft immediately. It works because you gave the AI a complete blueprint. It knows the context, the objective, the persona, and it has a concrete example to follow. You don't always need every single letter for every single task, but whenever you get a result that feels generic or off target, run it through the Scope checklist. Usually, you'll find you missed a step. Now, Scope handles single prompts incredibly well, but what happens when you need something more complex? Something that requires multiple steps or layers of thinking? That's where prompt chaining comes in. Prompt chaining means using the output of one prompt as the input for the next. You're building complexity layer by layer instead of trying to cram everything into one massive request. Here's why this matters. Let's say you need to create a go-to-market strategy for a new product launch. If you dump that entire request into one prompt, you'll get surface-level generic advice. But if you chain your prompts, you break it into logical steps. First prompt, act as a market researcher. Analyze the competitive landscape for project management tools targeting remote teams. Identify the top 3 competitors and their positioning strategies. The AI gives you a detailed competitive analysis. Now you take that output and feed it into the second prompt. Based on this competitive analysis, act as a product strategist. Identify 3 gaps in the market that our product can exploit. Focus on features the competitors are missing. The AI now builds on the previous context. It's not starting from scratch. It is refining what it already knows. Third prompt, using these market gaps, act as a marketing director. Create a 3-month launch plan that positions our product against these specific weaknesses in competitor offerings. Each step compounds. You're not asking the AI to do everything at once. You're guiding it through a sequence, and each output gets more precise because it's building on validated information from the previous step. This works for any complex task. Take a business proposal. Instead of writing it all at once, start by generating the executive summary. Then use that text to create the problem statement and finally, the solution framework. Each piece feeds directly into the next. The key is to treat the AI like you're having a working session. You wouldn't ask your team to deliver a full strategy in one meeting. You'd break it into phases: discovery, analysis, strategy, execution. Prompt chaining does the same thing. And here's the bonus. You can apply Scope to each individual prompt in the chain. That means every step is precise, contextualized, and targeted. Now that you have the framework, let's talk about what breaks it. First, avoid broad requests. If you just ask for marketing help, you aren't giving the model enough to work with. Without specific data, the AI relies on guesswork, and it usually guesses wrong. But the specific mistake that ruins most prompts is something I call text vomit. I see people dump 300 words of instructions into a single massive paragraph. They mix context, persona, and examples into one messy run-on sentence. You want to avoid this because even AI struggles to parse dense blocks of text. It might execute the first instruction perfectly, but completely miss the third one buried in the middle of a sentence. You need to structure your prompt visually. Use line breaks and bullet points to clearly separate your context from your objective. If you can't scan the prompt in 5 seconds, it is probably too dense. And finally, remember that prompting is an iterative process. If the output isn't perfect, simply go back to the framework. Look at your scope, find the missing variable, and run it again. Now, a common question people have is, do I need to use all 5 elements every single time? The answer is no, and here is what is actually important. Specificity is non-negotiable. It is the foundation of every prompt. Context is required whenever the AI is blind to the history or the relationship. Objective is for when the text needs to do something, like sell, convince, or apologize. Persona is for when you need a specific expert brain to filter the information, and examples are for when you need to match a specific brand voice or style. If you are in a rush, just focus on specificity and context, and those two alone will solve 80% of your bad outputs. So that is the scope framework. You now have the exact blueprint to turn vague ideas into precise instructions. This means you stop fighting the AI and start directing it. You aren't wasting time editing bad drafts. You are getting usable work the first time, every time. Now the best place to test this is inside Notebook LM. I have a full breakdown of the features you should be using in the video on the screen. Click it right now and I'll see you there.